Joining us to talk more about growth and technology is Dennis Crowley. He's the CEO of Foursquare. That's a web service that lets users share their whereabouts. Dennis, good to have you back with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
We're talking so much about jobs. President Obama giving a major speech about what he thinks needs to be done to get more jobs created at this point. In the technology sector, what isn't being done that you think should be done?
Oh, it's tough. Like we're having a hard time finding engineers as it is. Like we're trying to hire people as quickly as possible, and there's just a lot of competition out there.
So there's workers out there that just don't have the skills.
Well, I think it's in New York. It's especially tough because there's really not a big tech hub in New York in the same way that there has been out in San Francisco for a while.
Right.
I think you're starting to see a little bit more focus on trying to get universities to show up in New York and put more focus on engineering programs, which I think would help a lot of New York startups.
That's a great point, but it's not a quick overnight fix, is it? When you're talking about education, you can't give somebody an engineering degree overnight.
Oh, I think it's stuff that's going to take a long time to fix, and it also happens because there's just so many interesting things going on in technology. A lot of people competing for a small pool of talented engineers.
The president talks with a lot of CEOs, major companies. I think of Jeff Immelt over at GE and so on. Do you feel like the technology industry is getting fair representation? Companies like yourself?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a lot of, there's a lot of technology companies that are really mainstream now. There's like the Foursquares and the Twitters and the Facebooks, and I think a lot of people are kind of sympathetic to like how quickly we're growing, and maybe even like how difficult it is for us to grow, especially with trying to recruit engineering talent.
So Dennis, does the Valley have the same concerns as the rest of corporate America? Because we see everybody stockpiling cash and just holding on to it because of the uncertainty in the future in Europe, in the U.S. tax codes, in the regulatory situation. Do tech CEOs feel the same way?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that we're holding on to it. We're really trying to grow as quickly as possible, trying to grow the team in New York, try to grow the team in San Francisco. And for us, it's all about hiring, and all the a lot of the other companies that are out in the Valley, like we're competing with them for some of the best engineers.
So you're hiring. How aggressively are you hiring at this point?
Well, the company's growing like wildfire. We've got 85 people total. We've got 15 people in our San Francisco office, and this is up from 20 people last year. And so there's new people at the office every day now.
Well, it's interesting. We talk about the economy every day too, and there's worries about going back into a double-dip recession. From where you sit, Dennis, how do you describe? Your business sounds like you're doing pretty well.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes in New York, and especially in the technology scene, you're a little bit isolated from some of the larger woes. I guess outside of the city.
Do you really do feel isolated?
Well, sometimes. We're looking at a scenario like we can't bring people in quick enough, and we're interviewing people all the time. And it's just something I think that's unique to technology, and especially technology in big urban environments.
All right. So what happens with Foursquare next? What's your kind of plans here at this point? You and I have talked about whether a public offering makes sense, and at this point, a lot of people are saying now with the market environment it doesn't make sense. But I'm just curious where you guys are going.
We haven't been thinking so much about public offering or anything. We're really just focused on the company and building the team, building the product, getting people really excited about what we're doing. We've got about 10 million people using the product, about 500,000 merchants that are starting to use it, and just getting those numbers to be a lot bigger.
Do you feel that competition is a bigger issue for you than it would be, say, for a Twitter or for a Facebook?
Competition in terms of hiring, or with?
No, in terms of other people offering similar services as Foursquare, or do you feel like your footprint is so big and so well imprinted that you don't need to worry as much?
Well, I think we're competing with a different group of people than we were competing with a year ago. Now we're definitely competing with the Googles and the Facebooks and the Twitters, and even though we're the smallest startup of that crop, we're definitely in that category.
This week we talked a lot about Google buying Zagat. That was kind of an interesting acquisition. What do you think of that? And are acquisitions kind of part of your strategy?
Yeah, it might be something that we look at going forward. Especially, it's a good way to bring in a couple engineers at a time. We haven't done that yet, but we're always thinking about things that we can be doing.
You sound pretty comfortable, pretty relaxed, and I just think about so many people we talk about, and of course we're talking about Greece and some major macro issues, but a lot of people are worried about kind of the outlook at this point. You don't seem too worried.
Yeah, well, we've been hustling for the last couple of years or so to put the company in a really good position. We raised another round of funding this past summer, and so the company's in a very good position to keep doing the things that we want to do for a couple of years.
So all the capital you want, you're getting access to it, no problem.
Yeah, well, it's not a continuous thing. We did a financing round earlier this summer, and that puts the company in a really good position just to let us do the stuff that we want to do without having to worry about all the stuff that's happening elsewhere in the world.
Hey, Dennis, a couple of weeks ago, we sort of joined the media chorus reporting the death of the daily deals industry as Facebook and others pulled out. What do you think about that business model? Obviously, Foursquare can be a key part of that.
Yeah, we think about that a lot. I mean, like we think there's lots of different tools that you can build for local merchants, and I think that the Groupons and the Living Socials of the world have shown us that Dealy Deals are going to be one component of that. One of the best things that's come out of that space is that you've got those two companies and a whole bunch of other companies that are reaching out to merchants for the first time and showing them that there's better tools that they can use on the internet than the Yellow Pages or even some of the just like creating a regular website. And so that's really exciting for us because merchants are starting to get educated about the space, and it opens up a huge opportunity for us.
And they're open to it at this point.
Yeah, they're open to it. They're excited about it. A lot of them have experimented with Groupon or Living Social or offering different type of things. We get a lot of merchants that are playing around with Twitter. Yeah. And we've got 500,000 merchants that are now on Foursquare. It sets us up very nicely for all the things that we want to be doing.
What about globally?
Yeah, same thing. It's like one of the really surprising numbers about Foursquare is about 55% of the usage comes from outside of the U.S. Like
55%.
Yeah, it's growing very quickly too. Like we're based in New York. We have an office in San Francisco, but like we're seeing explosive growth all over South America, all over Europe, all over Southeast Asia.
So you're seeing it throughout. That's interesting.
Yeah,
and Europe as well, you said.
Yeah, really all over the world. And it comes in different stages. It's really interesting to watch.
Yeah, I bet. I'm sorry, Matt, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to ask about, Dennis, how you see Scavenger, because such an interesting story, an interesting character. Carol has interviewed the guy.
Sept pre-batch.
What do you think?
Oh, I mean, they're based out of Boston.
You kind of compete on a few different levels, right?
Yeah, we've, I think they're in a similar space to us. Like, we really have our eyes on the Googles and the Facebooks and the Groupons in that class. To be honest, like, there's a lot of people that are doing interesting stuff in the space, and we've got a very specific roadmap about what we want to be doing. And, it's in our best interest just to keep focused on what we're doing and try to, not get distracted by everyone else.
Well, it's funny you talk about, focusing on the Googles and the Facebooks of this world. I'm just curious. I mean, are they approaching you about trying to link up? I mean, Google's obviously reaching out to various things like we talked about Sagat this week. I mean,
yeah, sure.
Are they talking to you wanting to have, a more significant relationship with you?
Well, I used to work at Google. There's a lot of people at Foursquare that used to work at Google.
So you do talk to them?
Yeah, I mean, we're friendly with them. We have a lot of friends that work at Twitter too, and we think of ways that we can start combining different products. So we're all working together and helping the ecosystem. Of course, we're competitive and we're kind of complementary at the same time. So there's all sorts of things we could do there.
But would you anticipate a more significant? I'm just going to ask you.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, would you anticipate a time where you'd be open to something like Google buying you guys?
No, to be honest, we really don't think about it that often. It's about, it sounds so weird to say, but all we do is just focus on the product.
And your investors don't think about it either?
Well, I mean, we just raised a whole bunch of money. They want to see us shoot for the moon, and that's what we're doing. Build the team, continue to grow the product. It's really exciting for us.
Hey, Dennis, also exciting for us is we've got a new series coming out called Tech Stars, and you're one of the mentors actually on it. It premieres next week, and I do want to have everybody kind of listen in on the advice that Dennis actually gave to some of the young entrepreneurs. Listen up.
It was this one venue, this one business that was a coffee shop out in San Francisco that hung a flyer up, and the flyer said, "Hey, show us you're on Foursquare, or show us you checked in, and we'll give you a free ticket to the show that's playing tonight." And this is like a classic moment in anything social. It's like once the product gets away from you, like when the users or the user community starts doing stuff that you didn't expect them to do, and they start inventing what the future should be, that's when things really start taking off.
You having fun with this?
Yes, my haircut's awful in that video. My grandmother was right.
But I mean, what's kind of the biggest question or the most often asked question from these kind of aspiring entrepreneurs that they ask about you?
It's always how do you get started? And once you get started, how do I find a technical co-founder? Or how do I find a business co-founder? That's question number one. And question number two is always, okay, I built a prototype. How do I get 1 million people using it? And I think a lot of people look at the Foursquare story and they think it was just this rocket ship ride where hey, everyone talks about us now, but it took us 9 months of scrapping along and
really hard,
really hustling, ups and downs. We had periods where we didn't think it was going to work. And
I'm always amazed when I talk to you guys or like a Sept pre-batch of Scavenger. I mean, who Sept kind of eats, drinks, sleeps, lives at the office, and I'm assuming you guys did and continue to do.
Yeah, we're just always hustling. We got things that we want to do, and the only way to we're the only ones that are going to build them. No one else is going to do it for us. So just keep plugging away.
All right, we got to run. Dennis, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And everybody, it was great to have you back.